If there was a way to fix most of the problems in the world, would you want to know about it? So about 5 years ago, the Society of Problem Solvers, we started studying what we thought the biggest problem in the world was. And we came to one conclusion, and that problem is the essential systems for humanity have been corrupted. So the most important systems for humanity are governments, our food systems, our education systems, our medical systems, our finance systems, and even science has been corrupted by people that do not have the best interest for humanity for that. So now that we know that that is our biggest problem, that our systems are corrupted, what can we do about it? And the answer we came up with is we can't really fight it. We can't change it by voting. We don't want to use violence or anything like that. We need to exit those systems and build new ones. And you can't just exit systems that you count on. We count on these systems, so we can't just totally exit them. But what we can do is we can start to exit them, like exit the food systems by basically buying local, buying organic. You can exit the education systems by doing homeschooling. You can exit some of these big financial systems by not giving your money to Wall Street entities that use it for bad things or that don't have a code of conduct that you like. You can also use money for local credit unions and even use crypto that you trust and things like this. So we can start to exit bad systems and build new ones. But it still doesn't change the fact of how we are supposed to make decisions in groups, because that's the real problem. We elect representatives and those representatives become corrupted. That is the corruption point of our systems, is the representative. Because that's the problem, we have to look at it in a new way. We have to create a new kind of system that runs parallel to our system that holds it accountable. So we need to build something that is 100% built and controlled by the people, and then we take that thing and we use that thing to fix our other problems. The way we do this is we eliminate the corruption point. We eliminate the representative or the leader, because no matter who they are, they're going to be susceptible to being corrupted. All people are corruptible. We have to face that weakness in humanity. All of us are corruptible in some way. Now, maybe you're saying, oh, you couldn't corrupt me. And I kind of felt that way at first too. Like, I don't think that I'm easily corruptible. You couldn't bribe me, I don't think. And you probably couldn't blackmail me. And, you couldn't cancel me or something like this. However, I do have weak points. If you held someone that I love very dearly and coerced them or pressured them or hurt them or was violent towards them, I might crumble. I would crumble probably. I wouldn't want to see someone that I care about get hurt. So knowing that about all of us as individuals, we need to find a way to stand together where that corruption point isn't the same. And we need to learn how to make decisions in groups better on high trust networks. So the idea is to create a revolutionary new network. That's the way out of what we have right now. We create small circles, small local high trust circles, and then start connecting them on a digital network. We mix the old ways of doing things in person, high trust, handshakes, meeting people face to face, and take that and build a digital network where groups of people work with other groups of people to build back our communities. We exit the bad systems, we build the new systems, and then we plug these new systems into the existing ones to fix them and eventually change everything. Right now, our systems are power over people. And the best way that we can get systems to run is if we do power with people. And these are called collective intelligence systems or collective swarm intelligence systems. There are different ways to make decisions in groups that we're not using right now that we need to take a good, strong look at. These new ways of making decisions in groups, they're testable, so we can put them to the test and see how well they work. We've already used them in business. We've used them in all different kinds of groups except government. All right, so let's talk about revolutionary networking, a new way to network where we can take small groups of high trust people and connect them. There are certain steps and laws that we're going to need to follow in order to build the network correctly. The first step is we got to create a new gathering space for real human connection, and then take that gathering space and connect us digitally. So We need trustworthy places for humanity to gather and solve problems, right? All the places that we had previously have become corrupted because they're centralized. So think of any institution that you can think of. Do you trust it right now? Do you trust government? Do you trust media? Do you trust academia? Do you trust science? Do you trust medicine? Do you trust the food supply? Any of these things that are centralized, if you corrupt the top of it, you corrupt the whole system. You know, in jiu-jitsu and wrestling, we have a saying, control the head, control the whole body, or kill the head, kill the dragon. And that's how it is with systems. If you control the head of a system, the CEO, the boss, the president, then you control the whole system. And so any of these centralized top-down organizations, all you need to do to corrupt the whole thing is to corrupt the top of it. So we need to make a different kind of system that is power with the people and is groups of us making decisions. And I know when I say that, people automatically want to push back. Oh, what about mob rule and groupthink? Yeah, that exists. All powerful forces in this world have dangers. So you think of nuclear power, or you think of electricity or flight or anything that is powerful. It can be dangerous and it can be used for good or bad. The thing is that they're going to use technology, the people that are in charge, to try to control us. We can't just stick our head in the sand and hide from it. If we fail to use technology, we will end up very much like the American Indians did with the settlers when they failed to use gunpowder or have that technology, right? You can have a warrior spirit, you can have a great network of people, but technology matters, and we can't run from it, and we can't stick our head in the sand. We have to take technology and also use it to our advantage. We can't let companies like Palantir and all these digital apparatus and AI to control us. What we need to do is take what we do best, which is connect people and outnumber them, and then use these networks and a new code of conduct to push forward and change our systems. So let's just go through some of these steps. We're going to go step by step here on what we can do to create a revolutionary networking system if we want to, if we choose to. The difficult part, of course, is creating a movement to do this, creating enough people to do this, getting enough capital and pooling resources. But humanity was ready to pool resources to stop, the Canadian trucker movement, or they were also ready to pool resources to buy Spirit Airlines. And they were also ready to pool resources for GameStop. And these were all things that the establishment did not like. They fought really hard to stop those things. So obviously that is something they don't like, and something we should be looking at more of is pooling resources. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's just go step by step here on what we could do to create a new kind of network. The first step would be to create local networks. And these local networks are places to gather to build trust, face to face, in real life, right? Me to you and you to me. I know you're a real person. I shake your hand. We do local business. We buy food, things like this, right? These local meetups will build trust. And trust is super important for collective intelligence to emerge. It's also super important for strong networks, right? If you take a look at these organizations like the World Economic Forum, right? This is a high trust network, and they run with fear and secrecy and things like this. We need to create a high trust network, but it runs transparently, right? That's the key. They can't run transparently because their intentions are not good. We can. And we can outnumber them, and we can do so in very quick amount of time if we get, the systems correct. Every strong civilization in history began with real human gathering spaces. So before there were nations, there were tribes. Before there were algorithms, there were councils, marketplaces, camps, farms, and training grounds where people built trust face to face. This is what we got to think about if we're going to create a revolutionary networking process here. We got to begin face to face. The first step is rebuilding high trust, real world environments where human beings can actually know each other again and build trust. Local meetups, community hubs, farm cafes, martial arts academies, maker and builder spaces, decentralized education centers. We do things like this like parallel economy kind of stuff. and we meet face to face, that is step one. But digital-only systems are too vulnerable. We can't just make digital-only systems. They'll be full of garbage. They'll be full of bots. They're vulnerable to AI attacks and manipulation and fake identities, propaganda campaigns, and psychological warfare. So what we do is we create these digital spaces where after I meet you in person, we give decentralized trust ratings to each other. And I know that sounds a little scary. You think of like a trust rating like, oh, China has these trust scores that they give their citizens. It's not that. Decentralized trust is the opposite of that. It's like, I met you in person and I just leave you a little review and go, yeah, you're a real person. And I did business with you or whatever. And this locks AI and bots out. And this is really important. We have to lock AI and bots out of any new system we build. And so the way to do that is face to face. And so anyone caught abusing this can be kicked out of our system. And, you create these really high trust, high tight networks. If I vouch for 50 people, I want my vouch to matter. And I care about that. So if you're caught lying about someone being a real person, you're kicked out. It's going to really hurt you. You're going to want to be part of these groups because these groups are going to work together and have each other's backs, right? So we create these spaces that are mixtures of real life, IRL, and digital life, URL. And the strongest networks will be built by people who have looked each other in the eye and shaken hands and worked together, trained together, built together, and proven themselves to one another over time. It's called the iterated prisoner's dilemma. If you're not familiar with what the iterated prisoner's dilemma is, it's game theory. So there's this game theory where basically it proves that if you're willing to collaborate with others, you are able to go much farther in the game than if you try to rip each other off. So people who are willing to collaborate will win. And you win big. Like, you look at it like, okay, there's a finite pie and we're cutting it up and we're all taking a slice. That's not what's happening in a high trust network. In a high trust network, at least the ones that I'm part of, the high trust networks that I belong to, we build a pie together. And then we grow that pie really big and we all bring some ingredients. And in the end, the slice of pie we take is so much bigger than if we would have tried to just rob each other in the beginning. We need to create networks like this and then work with each other, outside of the realms of corporate America. So step one, the first revolutionary act is to rebuild real human connection and trust. Everything we have can be built on top of trust. And it's not esoteric. It's real because when you have trust, then you can do the iterated prisoner's dilemma with each other. I have several very high trust groups of people, and I've seen conversations go down that would blow your mind, where one person goes to another, hey, I need 50 grand, and the other person doesn't ask why. They just go, what bank account? Because they've had so many previous iterations together that trust is built so high that they know that that's going to come back to them. And this is the kind of thing we can do with each other and then build huge new communities on top of it, really high trust communities. So that's step one, establish a new human connection, right? A new platform for human connection. Step two is to create a new shared code of conduct and culture for our network. We need a new code of conduct and a new culture. And those two things are very important. The code of conduct should span all group labels, right? It should be very inclusive. In fact, we shouldn't really talk about group labels too much. We'll get into this in a little bit why, but we should just be all individuals. Every time you assign yourself a group label, say I am part of this group, you're taking away the individual that you are. But in terms of collective intelligence, which we'll get into in a little bit, all groupthink starts with group labels. So when we're solving problems as a group, we're always one big group. That's it. There is no sub-labels when we're solving these problems, unless it's part of the problem, which is very, very rare, by the way, unless you decide to make up these group labels. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but culture is very important as well. Almost all technology starts with a culture change. So we have to have culture comes first. And the example I really like to give is at the end of the 1800s, it was the end of the Wild Wild West. And we changed our culture from the Wild Wild West to something called cleanliness is next to godliness. And from that culture change, some of the best technology advances of humankind came right from that. running water, plumbing, refuse disposal, garbage removal, stop going to the bathroom in the streets and disease. So you change the culture first and the technology followed. And so our culture change right now, one of them should be we should demand systems that are high trust and are not easy to corrupt. And all of our systems are right now easy to corrupt. You corrupt the representative or the top and you corrupt the whole thing. But it doesn't have to be this way. We can change the systems, decentralized, transparent, and we'll get into some of these things in just a little bit here. Most people are, they put their party over their principles, right? I belong to X group, and they don't really have, their principles will change with the party. If you tell yourself, oh, I'm part of this political party, when that political party changes, so do you. Most of the time. That's what happens. Most people do not go against their party because humans want to be part of groups. It's like inherently part of our DNA. We always have wanted to be part of groups because we know when we collaborate in groups, you get the iterated prisoner's dilemma that happens in these groups and you have a better chance of surviving. So we evolved to be collaborators. That's how humans evolved. So we get sucked into groups, and then when we do, the people that are in charge spend billions of dollars understanding group psychology, and they use that against us. They use it to separate us. I'm sure you've heard the adage before of you take a jar full of red ants and black ants and they're fine until you shake the jar. Once you shake the jar, then the ants start fighting. Well, that's the same thing with us. Once we assign ourselves these labels, then you start trying to be part of a team. And when you try to be part of a team, everything goes awry and you want to fight the others. So it always starts with these group labels. And so we have to be really deeply understanding what that means. Like why are we fighting over these labels? If we take away the labels and come together as one group, we can solve these problems with confidence scores and get really, really high confidence scores. This is testable. We can use collective swarm intelligence systems and take, things that are very divisive. I give the example of immigration. One political party sees immigration one way and the other political party sees immigration the other way, and you're given these two choices. However, when you take all of let's say half Democrats and half Republicans, and you put them together and you said, let's solve immigration together, they'll come up with an answer that's reasonable and rational and has a really high confidence score, which means like 95% of the people will agree to that solution. But when you let the political parties, the groups decide from the top down, you get these very divisive answers, and 51% like this and 49% like this. And that is the group psychology that they're using against us. Specifically, like exactly like that. Now we can do this for literally every single hot button issue, and we can definitely do it for pretty much every other issue too. You can see that we can take groups of people and come up with answers that have very high confidence scores. We can fix all of this by creating a new code, a new culture, and a deep understanding that humans are flawed this way and how to understand our own group psychology better. So in businesses, we try to teach everyone, like, how do we behave better as a group because it will benefit the individuals. You have this ongoing debate between individualism and collectivism, like, the individual is more important and the collective is more important. They're both important, right? If we look at it as a big picture, both the individual and the group are important. And so it's always constantly zoom in, zoom out. If the individual is not protected with a code of conduct, the whole thing falls apart, right? And if the collective isn't being taken care of, then it's not a good group. Both the whole collective and the individual need to be taken care of with the right systems, the right code of conduct, and the understanding the psychology that goes into getting results for both the individual and the group. So we should not organize ourselves around rigid political identities, ideological camps, or group labels. Instead, we must unite around shared code of conduct that transcends labels entirely. And we can this is a deep rabbit hole, but it's not that complicated. We make systems where when we're solving problems, we're anonymous. I don't know your labels. I don't know your sex. I don't even know your name. You're just your ideas and your answers. And then when we're done solving the problems on the platforms, I know who you are. I know you're a real person. I know you're high trust. I can see that you've met 400 of my friends and done business with 200 people I know. So think of it like Amazon and eBay, right? Those are decentralized platforms for trust. You leave a rating and a review, and it's peer-to-peer. So you have that before you solve problems, but then when you're solving problems, you're anonymous. So that way group labels cannot be used, and you just stand alone as your answers. And then we need a code that's rooted in free and open criticism. So that means, of course, protecting free speech. Individual sovereignty, this is like a must. Each human is sovereign, and we have to respect that. Transparency, the systems must be transparent. Decentralization of power. Pooled resources, which can be simple, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but imagine if 1 million of us throw $20 a month in the middle, like a Netflix subscription. That's $20 million a month. We become a force for change. Just a little bit like that, right? Earn trust, so peer-to-peer trust. Voluntary participation, this must be voluntary. Like if you don't want to be part of our group, don't. But you're going to want to be part of a group that takes care of each other and has each other's back, right? That's the kind of group we should strive to make with our code of conduct. Mutual respect, that is like the core of pretty much any good society is mutual respect. Constructive disagreement, all progress comes from disagreement. Skin in the game, $20 a month or sweat equity or something along these lines. You have to have skin in the game. You shouldn't be making decisions if you don't have skin in the game. That's our politicians, right? That's the people that got the banks that got bailed out. They could use our money and play with our money, but had no skin in the game at all because they just got bailed out. We use collective intelligence. That's our secret sauce, and we'll get into that in a little bit. That really changes everything. And then independent thought. You have to guard independent thought ferociously. Independent thought is required for collective intelligence to arise. Our network must reward honesty, curiosity, courage, effort, and the willingness to challenge consensus when necessary. A healthy network cannot function like a cult, and it can't revolve around like charismatic leaders. Like this will just turn into obedience, and we cannot have, we want disobedience, honestly. All progress is disobedience from the norm, right? So we want to foster that with a respectful culture. It should function like a living, intelligent system. That's what our group and our network should function like. And all growth will come from this. If you look at David Deutsch, who's a famous physicist and philosopher from Oxford, he says that it's a culture of criticism that creates progress. So you have to create the culture of criticism that we want to see for progress. However, criticism doesn't mean criticize everything for no reason. No, it means testability. And that's a whole other deep rabbit hole we can get into. Our code of conduct cannot be dictated by rulers or come from the top down. It needs to emerge collectively from the network itself and be protected by the culture of the network. So that's step 2. Step 3, and we've touched on this a little bit already, we're going to pool resources to build strong parallel systems. We need to exit the corrupt systems and build parallel ones. These have to exist outside of government. We don't have a choice. If we pool $20 a month or whatever, or have it open to donations too, which I'd be happy to donate more than $20 a month and let other people control that money. We can prove that like there's a better way to do taxes, basically, right? They take our taxes and representatives get to decide what to do with it, and they rob us. That's what happens. We can just take a small little bit of money and put it in the middle. We don't have to do it like some kind of charity or only build roads. We can start businesses. We can start a new grocery store with our pooled money, and maybe that grocery store tests all the food independently for all different kinds of things, chemicals and all that. We can start our own farms. We can start our own political campaigns. We can accept sweat equity, and people can do work for us from the group and earn more trust that way. This is called membership capital if we do it, want to do it the smart way and avoid like the red tape. And it's also creates skin in the game, which creates accountability and helps enhance collective intelligence. So the first purpose of pooled resources should be to strengthen the new network itself. So build better trust systems, better platforms for communication, better ways to pool money, like transparent ways. Maybe that's on a ledger for, Bitcoin or some other kind of decentralized ledger where we can all see it at all times. verification systems, communication systems, decentralized media systems. We need education systems too. This is important because we need to all learn how to behave in swarms and in groups, because it's kind of like flying a plane. Like I already mentioned, it can be dangerous, but if everyone is well trained in how to behave in a group, it becomes a lot less dangerous. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money. Like I said, we can just pool small little bits of money and see how we behave. But we've already tested this. This is going to, groups of people, when they have a good code of conduct and a good system, they're altruistic and they're creative and they solve problems amazingly well. And that skin in the game, you put in a little bit every month. It would be like a membership fee or something along these lines. So these private membership clubs, they're a good structure for us to follow, both legally and as a way to pool money and resources, because this is a way that is already established in law. If we try to say, oh, we're going to all be owners of a new company, you have a problem there, because once you get 100 new owners or 200 new owners, we have to deal with the SEC, and that becomes a big problem. It's going to be a lot of red tape. So a private membership network, if we create one of these, will be able to be easily implemented quickly. And we can donate, like I said, more money, but you just have some kind of small set fee to become a member. You have some kind of requirement where you have to meet in person sometimes to verify that you're a real person and not an AI or bot in a decentralized way. And once people see how well this works, tons of people will donate more money, especially if you have certain crypto as a part of it. People will donate Bitcoin, and people want to see decentralized systems work. I mean, just look at Spirit Airlines, how many people donated to that, or look at how many people were on the GameStop movement or the Canadian trucker movement. Whether or not you agree with it or not is not the point. People were willing to donate and get behind groups of people combating, centralized structures. And we can do this in a much, much better way. But first we need tools, and those tools should be building a system, building a platform. And the skin in the game will keep the AI and bots out too. Like AI and bots, if they're paying us $20 a month, we'll take their money and we'll be able to figure out pretty easily that they're fake, because, we'll see that they don't connect to any of our friends and we'll be like, who are these people? So we pool resources and use them in a transparent way, like on a blockchain. And then we turn into a real force for change. Like $20 million a month is a force for change. $10,000 a month, if done wisely, is a force for change. And it will be wise because we'll be doing it as a group. And we'll get into that in a second. So the resources that we can build is something much larger. And a lot of people are calling these parallel local economies or parallel economies or well-being economies. There's a bunch of people on Substack writing about these exit and build type systems. There's people on social media talking about them as well. But we have to really think our way through these and kind of create a place where we all discuss exactly what we should be doing. So imagine communities build clean food shopping centers. That's a really good one to start. Or local organic farms or food cooperatives, independent gyms, political action groups, education hubs, wellness centers. We kind of talked about this already. Local manufacturing, shared workspaces. These can then be connected or turned into money makers. We can make money and put the money back into the pool, back into our decentralized hubs, and then keep that money growing and spread out amongst many of us. It shouldn't be centralized. Our money should be transparent, but spread out among many nodes, many small circles that are connected. So maybe there's one circle, let's say in Pittsburgh, and that's our farming circle. And then in Buffalo, we're the tech hub, whatever. We have these different circles and we connect the circles together. A society that can't feed itself, though, or educate itself, or communicate independently, or coordinate locally is not really sovereign or free. So we have to make the system that we're going to operate on first. And when we make one of these or many of these and let them compete against each other and see which ones work the best, it would probably be best, though, if we all can just kind of come together and agree on some certain parameters within our code. All right, so this brings us to step 4, decentralization of power. And this is key because, as we mentioned, any centralized power structure will eventually become corrupted. It will, America for the time was decentralized. We decentralized the power over the states and senators and congressmen. But as our population grew, that didn't change much. And now all you have to do basically is corrupt 300 people and you own the entire U.S. government. You corrupt, a certain, more than 50% of the senators and more than 50% of the congressmen, and you're in control. So that's too fragile of a system. We need to, at the very least, create thousands and thousands of more people that are making decisions. Now, should every single person get a say? I don't know. That's debatable. I do think that you need to have skin in the game and build trust before you get a say. But I don't think it should be the barrier to entry is like super hard in our network. And I'm talking about our network. I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about creating a new network, and the barrier to entry requires some level of sacrifice and skin in the game. And I'm willing to do that as well. And I'm sure a lot of people are. Basically learn how to behave in groups, agree to a code of conduct, put a little money in the middle, things like this. When we realize that all people are corruptible by money, blackmail, violence, coercion, then we have to build systems that fix this. We can't count on people. We can't solve our problems with better people. That's not going to ever happen. It's over for that. We can only solve our problems with better systems. Our motto in this regard should be, don't trust, verify. And this is why revolutionary networking cannot depend on heroes, politicians, influencers, charismatic people. The system itself must resist centralization, and power must remain distributed. Authority has to be with the local circles as much as it is with anyone else, okay? We can have coaches. We can vote to have coaches or guides. We can have top-down entities that work for the greater group. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying that there can be no hierarchy. We're saying that the last hand on the bat, the last person in control is all of us, is the network. The network has the say, right? Not some person has the say. The network has to function as a swarm, not a pyramid. And when power is decentralized, corruption becomes really, really hard. It's very hard to corrupt anything that's decentralized. There's no single point of failure. No king to capture. There's no headquarters to raid. There's no single person capable of collapsing the movement. The strength is the network itself. There's a book called The Starfish and the Spider. This lays out the basic theories for all this. As a society of problem solvers, we highly recommend starting with this book if you want to understand decentralized systems. Step 5 is the innovation. This is the secret sauce. This is the tool that we have that the people that are corrupting our systems can't use, because it requires transparency. It requires decentralization of power. And when we have numbers, it really enhances itself. It's called collective swarm intelligence, or collective intelligence, or human swarm intelligence, or sometimes it's called the wisdom of crowds. There's a few names for it, but it's the idea that groups of people are smarter than individuals. And this is absolutely testable and absolutely true. But of course, there's the dangers of mob rule or witch hunts or all the bad things that also can happen in groups. So we need to ask ourselves, and we have been for a long time now, why? Why is it that sometimes groups of people can be amazing? We can be awesome. We can do all kinds of things. We can change skylines of cities and put people in outer space and cure diseases and build nations, write the Constitution. We can do all kinds of things like this. But also we can sometimes start wars and hurt each other and all these horrible things. And it comes down to really understanding group psychology and group dynamics and what systems we use. When you remove group labels from a whole group, you can never get to tyranny, because tyranny always requires a group label. It requires the others, the witches, the blacks, the whites, the Christians, the Muslims. It requires the others. And if we are just one group, one network that includes all the labels and doesn't use the labels while we're solving problems, there can never be tyranny. It doesn't exist. Those group labels are a requirement for tyranny. And then on top of that, there's a lot of different things you can do to do fail-safes to make sure that mob rule isn't reached. Every person can have basically a button they hit and say, hey, this is a warning. We think this is tyranny. And if it hits a low threshold, we stop what we're doing and examine it. We also use confidence scores, like I said. We use confidence scores, and we use a constitution or a code that protects the individual. But confidence scores avoid voting, and voting is not the best way to make decisions in groups. Swarm intelligence is. And you can use swarm intelligence a bunch of different ways. There's a bunch of systems that exist Dr. Rosenberg has amazing systems. James Surowiecki wrote a book called The Wisdom of Crowds. He talks about like the fundamental principles needed for collective intelligence to arise from groups. But this is all very real, very testable. I have run a bunch of systems and been part of a bunch of systems that use it, and we're enhancing it now. I go to school to a program that uses collective intelligence to help all the students run their actual businesses in the real world. So there's a lot of examples we can get into, but it's real, it's testable. I tell everyone I train jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It's like wrestling, and you can't fake it. There's no way to fake being good at jiu-jitsu. If you're good at jiu-jitsu, let's see, let's spar. And I like that testability. I like that, it's like chess. Are you good? Let's play. We'll see how good at chess you are. Well, the same thing is true with collective intelligence or swarm intelligence. It's testable. I can take a group of people and compete against individuals in problem solving, especially creative problem solving. And this is a whole deep pool called epistemology, knowledge creation. But the group of people will beat language model AI in a lot of different things. But when it comes to creative problem solving, like solving new problems, AI can't do that. AI is only regurgitating existing knowledge that humans created. Collective intelligence is the best way, the fastest way for people to create new knowledge, and the way to do it with the least amount of fallibility, if we have the right systems. So there's so many benefits to collective intelligence, and most people have never heard of it or don't understand how to do it. It's sort of simple on the surface, like group problem solving, but there's a lot of things we can do to enhance it. And the step one is get rid of group labels. We get rid of group labels, and we're going to be on the right track to making collective intelligence a powerful force. All powerful forces, like I mentioned before, can be dangerous. They can be used for good or evil. Nuclear, electric, gunpowder, flight. We need to understand collective intelligence and harness it and stop fearing it. That's what we need to do. We're afraid of mob rule, but what if we can actually take mob rule and use it to fix our systems? We should do that. There should be mob rule for one thing, and that should be to fix our corrupt systems. This is something we should all agree on. It doesn't matter what group label you adhere to. Whatever group label you go by, your skin color, your religion, your political party, any of that, it doesn't matter. You should still want the systems that govern your life to be free from corruption. This is something we should all agree on, and an easy way for us to see who the good people of this world are and the bad people. The good people should want systems that are free of corruption, and the bad people will resist this. And that could be what we build all this movement on. Just starting right there. Let's build systems that are free from corruption and free from centralized control, and that are transparent so we can all see them. Understanding collective intelligence and how to harness it and stop fearing it is the secret sauce here. And the key is basically education and better systems. If we know how to behave in a group, you go pretty far with the group. And then if you have really good systems, you go really far. So those two changes right there, and they're not that hard to make. They're kind of simple to make, actually. Just like you wouldn't fly a plane without training, you shouldn't operate a group of people without training, because of the fact, especially when there's money involved, because the fact that group it's a force now. However, the things that we need to avoid and things that we need to do to make that group work are not that complicated. They just require training. Humanity is now entering a new phase. That's what's happening. We're entering a new phase where we are needing to create swarms of people, groups of people, circles of people that connect to other circles. And for the first time in history, we have the technology that allows us to do this. So we can coordinate at a scale as big as a city, as big as a state, as big as a nation, as big as the whole world. We can coordinate a lot better than we're doing right now, as long as we have a code of conduct, a culture, and good systems. And this is why the architecture really matters, and how we build these systems really matter, and who controls the systems. It must be the people. We, the people, must control all of our own systems. The future is going one of two directions, right? The future is either going to be hyper-centralized technocracy, where they have total control of us. They would watch us with flock cameras. They use AI to make decisions, maybe hurt us, maybe turn our food and power off. Or it's going to be decentralized human swarm intelligence. Those are the two options. So the options are not left and right. The options are centralized or decentralized. The options are collaborating with each other or being controlled by the top-down people in power, and looking at this in a totally different way. There's no middle ground. That middle ground is going away, and we don't have much time. Step 6 is we gamify all of this, and this way it encourages participation. So this is how we mix individualism with collectivism, right? The individual can play the game and win. I mean, that's like what a free market's supposed to be. If you're putting in more effort or more money or things like this, you should be able to progress. So that is, but at the same time, the whole collective matters. We should still take care of the weakest people in our systems and our societies and help raise those people up. And we should base everything on metrics, just like a game. Like, how are we doing right now? If we took a measurement of our society right now and picked homelessness or drug abuse or whatever, if we actually measured it, we would see that we're playing the game pretty poorly, right? Like, we decide to throw people in jail for possessing drugs, and more people are dying now from drug overdoses than they were 30 years ago. Well, we're failing on every objective that we're trying in the game, and we should be able to pivot. And right now, our legacy systems don't allow us to pivot. So we need to gamify this, and we can create ways where people can participate in all these systems, not just politics or not just government, but also business. There's a lot of different ways that we can change all the systems around us where people are involved and using their collective intelligence to create new knowledge, which is the most important thing we can do, by the way, is create new knowledge for humanity, and then use that knowledge to fix the problems around us with better systems. So revolutionary networking must be different than everything we've already tried. It should feel like alive, like you want to be part of it. You want to participate and collaborate and grow with your neighbors and our nation and our states and all of that. It's almost like building like a real world sim city together. We can start somewhere small. Start anywhere. I'm in Buffalo. We can start in Buffalo. Or if you're somewhere else and you have a good network, we can start there. We can start 2 or 3 places and test it out and see how it works and then watch it spread. But what we need to do is have a common system and a code. Those are the 2 things. Like, again, step 1 and 2 is change the culture there and the code and meet in person. Communities should be able to watch projects evolve in real time. We should be able to pool resources comfortably and know that we're not being robbed, solve problems together in groups. And maybe collective swarm intelligence isn't the best way, but it's a lot better than all the ways that I've ever seen. I can promise you that. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of books. There's a great book called Nobody is Smarter Than Everybody by Rod Collins. And he was running billions of dollars through his businesses by bringing everyone together and having them solve problems in groups. He was not telling them what to do. They were telling him what to do. I have similar stories. Not as big of a scale, but still pretty big scale with hundreds of people solving problems together. And we need to improve our neighborhoods, build systems, build businesses, coordinate our food systems. All this is possible once we have exited or at least built a new system. We don't actually have to exit. We say exit and build, but really just build. We build something new and just get on there and start solving our problems all around us. And this will, if we gamify it the right way, you're going to want to participate. And when you participate in it, you can earn different things for different reasons. It'll be like let's say this big entity, this network is making hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, we can give out all different kinds of things, bonuses to people. We can gamify it. We can have objectives, just like a game. You can have bounties. That's what they do for DAOs, like decentralized autonomous organizations. They have bounties for people who build things or do things. Well, this is going to be more dynamic than that. And you can work for the swarm too. You can work for the network. You can have a job, a top-down job, and you could be basically elected in real time to be the CEO of a company that we run. But then you should be running that company the same way that we're running the whole network, which is harnessing the collective intelligence of the employees that work for you and for the whole system. And all of our systems we are required to have the same code. So that means all of our businesses, all of anything we do should be run with the same kind of system, one that's really hard to corrupt. Politics right now is set up to be run by businesses. So if we can get a whole bunch of decentralized businesses, a whole little economy going, we will by default just be the government, because it will be that easy just to plug and play. If we have a whole new industry, imagine, there's a lot of low hanging fruit. You have businesses that are basically decentralized, but for some reason are re-centralized and then owned by Wall Street. So businesses like Spotify, Uber, Amazon, these are all businesses that don't really require Wall Street. They could be owned by the network. And if they were, and we had a new code of conduct that told us that it had to be transparent and we had to take care of our employees and take care of our customers and take care of the environment and take care of our communities and, things like this. If we had a code of conduct that we adhere to, well, imagine if there was an Uber that was truly decentralized, that didn't have, centralized ownership and it was owned by this new network. Would you use that Uber or would you use the Wall Street one? Would you use the Amazon that is going to buy Jeff Bezos a new wedding or, a new $100 million wedding in 4 years? Or are you going to use the Amazon that is going to actually do good? When the profits come in, that money will be used for good. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit corporations that we could already be doing. Some places, I think Denver, Colorado, they already created like a driver-owned Uber. Well, I think a network-owned one where it's like basically the customers kind of own. Well, we're members, right? So you're not really owners. We're members, and the membership owns the Uber. Well, then we get discounts because we're members, right? So if you have more skin in the game, you might get half off of all rides on Uber, which wouldn't be hard to do because Wall Street isn't taking the money out of them, right? So there's a lot of different ways to gamify this whole entire new economy. And, all the younger generations, they're into gamification. They understand how to play games. But imagine those games had real rewards where you got real money and saw real progress around you. This is something that humans like. Humans like playing games. I do. I like playing games. Like I like jujitsu. Jujitsu is a game. I like playing video games. I like anything that's gamified. I enjoy more than if it's not gamified. And a lot of people take things that are mundane and gamify them and turn them to things that are kind of fun. So we can do that with basically politics or this whole network, and just picture like a Sim City, but that mixes IRL and URL, and we actually are buying businesses and properties and things in the real world. Imagine that. Step 7, the next step would be to build independent media, education, and cultural systems. We need to control our own knowledge. We can't let centralized powers control the knowledge. We can easily have a decentralized investigative news network. We've wrote about this in the Society of Problem Solvers a couple times, but imagine thousands of independent journalists investigating something, putting that evidence that we find into basically like a template that we all agree on, and then we kind of rate how trustworthy the evidence is. And we make a public opinion. We make a public opinion based on high criteria in a code, which is going to be a lot better than having a centralized power do it for us. So right now, there's so much noise. We need to block out the noise and create our own media spaces, our own investigative journalisms, podcasts, rate things by trust. How trustworthy do you think things are? And put them all together into a new space that is protected, that can't be so easily corrupted, because mostly all of the spaces that we currently use are centralized and thus easy to corrupt. If centralized systems control information, they control the perception, the angles, then they control reality itself. And we cannot allow them to do that anymore. A free civilization requires independent channels of communication and education to arise. And we can come up with way better ways to do that than we currently have. And the last step here is just to reiterate, we have to protect individual sovereignty. This should be with the code of conduct that we talked about earlier, but it needs its own step to make sure that individual sovereignty is protected. So every major advancement in human history began with individuals willing to challenge consensus and deviate from the crowd. Independent thought is not a threat to a healthy swarm. It is the fuel source of intelligence itself. So this network must protect dissent. It must reward curiosity. It must encourage healthy criticism. It must resist groupthink and echo chambers and, of course, tyranny. And it must preserve individuality. This is a requirement for collective intelligence to arise. In James Surowiecki's book, he highlights 4 different main things for collective intelligence to arise. and individualism, protecting the individual thought, is absolutely probably the most important one. If you don't do that, then you're going to end up with groupthink. So if you want to read more about that, the book is The Wisdom of Crowds. And without disagreement, we can't have progress. So the individual is very, very important. I just want to summarize this again. So we're going to summarize the whole entire vision for this revolutionary network, or this new kind of swarm network. We take small circles, verified people, that's decentralized, verified, peer-to-peer, pooled resources. We use collective intelligence on transparent platforms that we build ourselves outside of government, outside of the control of Wall Street. We build parallel economies and businesses, local sovereignty, and then coordination at scale. We create a decentralized civilization built by connecting humans together and swarms and groups of people together. We don't want power over people anymore. We want power with people. We have a code of conduct, and we have a new culture. And if we do these things, we can exit the bad systems, build new ones, and change the world pretty quickly. This revolution is a new network where we lock the bad guys out by how we operate. We say, hey, we're going to operate this new way. And if you want to join us, fine. But you're going to have to operate transparently into a code of conduct. And they simply can't do that. So we build new. We migrate to the new systems. And the people that are doing bad things won't be able to do them in our new systems, because we're going to constantly evolve our systems. We're going to test them for weaknesses. We're going to make sure they're not corrupted. We're going to have red teams that purposely try to corrupt our own systems, just like you do with software, and make it better and better and better. And our network's going to be higher and higher trust. And we're going to test everything and put it to results and make sure that we're adhering to our code of conduct. And there's consequences if you don't follow the code of conduct. You're going to want to be part of this network. You're going to want to be part of a group where I have your back and you have my back, and your neighbor has each other's back. And then the neighbors across the state have your back too. That's the kind of society we can have and we should have. And we shouldn't tolerate anything less. We don't have to. We can make that decision basically right now and build a new society together. We're ready to pool money. I'm ready to pool money. I'm ready to put money in the middle. We already did. The group that I've been working with put in over $100,000 to try to build software, and we really don't have any way to get it back. We're just trying to make systems that are better for humanity. But it'd be a lot better if we had a lot of us putting a little money in, and a lot of coders and a lot of help, and anything you can bring to the table. Let's build these systems and test them. You're going to see. You can use them in your business. You can use them in your communities. You can use them in your clubs. You can use them in your groups. You can use them in your governments. Any system of people can be run better if we all focus on making systems that are better for us. Thank you.